is embrace that failure and learn from that experience. I'm actually asking you, what is your definition of failure? Now, hold on a minute. Don't look in the dictionary. I want you to think of your own personal definition as best you can. It can be what you remember from the dictionary or what you learned in life or you heard from your parents, or it can be your own personal definition. What is failure to you? Go ahead, push pause, and write down 1 or 2 sentences defining failure as it applies to you. How about this question? Have you ever failed? Sure, it's an obvious answer. Everybody fails, right? Well, I'd like you to think of a time that you failed in your life where you really tried, you did your best, but you failed. Avoidable and necessary. Not what you were expecting from me, right? This isn't really a definition of failure, but this is the truth about failure. And this is what I really want you to understand and embrace throughout the rest of this lesson. Number 1, you can't avoid failing. Number 2, it's necessary. It's for your own benefit. Well, let's look at 8 of them. Here's 8 reasons why failure is good. Number 1, embrace failure because, as I already said, everyone fails. Beware of social media, ladies and gentlemen. People post only the highlights of their lives and enhance the images and stories to make them look even better than they are. Everybody struggles and fails. These failures are reality checks and teach us a little humility. Without failure, we might not reflect on our lives and appreciate what we have. And we'll see later, appreciation is a key to happiness. Number 2, failure makes you dig deeper and reach new understandings. Without failure, we might not reflect on our lives and appreciate what we have. Failure helps us reflect on the journey of life and what we want and where we're going. This reflection opens up new solutions to the problems we face. New opportunities arise. Number 3, failure emboldens the mind, making you stronger. Frederick Douglass once said that without struggle, there can be no progress. And how true is that? Every person who is truly successful in which it was not given to them by family or handed to them in some way has gone through some degree of difficulties. It's these difficulties that make people stronger and push them to realize their goals. Number 4, through failure, you learn life lessons that can't be learned from success. If you were always successful and never failed, what would you really learn? This idea is, of course, related to other reasons on the list, but it's something to remember when you're faced with failure in the future. You'll find yourself possibly deciding to continue or to give up. What will be your choice and why? Number 5, failure makes you search for new ways of doing things. Thomas Edison is famous for failing over 10,000 times to invent a commercially viable electric light bulb, but he never gave up. He viewed each failed attempt as a learning experience. Finally, after persistence, he invented a stable, working light bulb that changed human progress everywhere. Quite often, we need to work hard and continue to struggle before we solve the puzzles we're working on. Number 6, failure makes you more empathetic to the plight of others. Failure helps you better understand others' unfortunate situations. If you've experienced a similar struggle as someone else, then you can empathize with them much more. And better understanding people and the situations in the world leads to better connections with others and a better sense of morality and ethics. And we need these things to build better futures for ourselves, our children, and those around us. Number 7, knowing that it's okay to fail allows you to take more risks in life. Remember at the beginning of this lesson, we saw a quote, "There is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve, the fear of failure." Well, fear, at least irrational fear, is your biggest enemy in so many things in life. The fear of public speaking, the fear of talking to that girl or boy you like, fear of asking questions, fear of trying something new, fear of being successful. It's a much bigger risk to not try than to try. And finally, success tastes far sweeter after major failures. You may have heard a saying similar to, how can you appreciate the good without first knowing the bad? Or, you can't appreciate the light without the dark. If you rarely fail and only have small failures, then you will not really enjoy your successes. However, the opposite is true. Once you've struggled, failed, and then succeeded, that moment will be like no other. It will feel fantastic, and it will motivate you to continue developing yourself more into who you want to be. Look again at your definition of failure that I asked you to define in our previous lesson. And if you look up here, I've got a few examples of failure that maybe are definitions from other people. Let's read those real quickly. Number one up here, failure is when we don't match up to the expectations we have of ourselves. Okay, failure is when we can't meet the goals we set for ourselves. All right, that's a decent definition of failure. How about the third one? I don't think there's a thing like failure because we always learn from our mistakes. 2, identify the cause. 3, evaluate your thinking. 4, research it. And 5, document it. Let's go throughout each of these in a little bit more detail. Number 1, take responsibility. Recognize that you failed. That's not difficult. However, whose fault was it? Don't complain. Don't blame others or situations that are out of your control. If you mentally take responsibility and you own that failure, then you'll become mentally stronger and better prepared to prevent failure or better prepared for the next time failure happens. From the famous Jim Rohn, he said, you must take responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. Lou Holtz, quote unquote, the man who complains about the way the ball bounces is likely to be the one who dropped it. And number 3, George Washington Carver. 99% of all failures come from people who have a habit of making excuses. Don't make excuses. Don't complain. Own your failure. Number 2, identify the cause. Quite often, the cause of failure is not one particular situation, action, or decision. It's usually a combination of decisions that were made over time. Look back on what decisions you made and which ones have contributed to the final result of failure. And document. Write it down. Document every decision, working backwards until you reach the point that ultimately became the road to failure. Number 3, evaluate your thinking. Try to recall, number 1, how you imagined how things would turn out, and 2, how things actually turned out. What was your vision of success and what was reality? Did I make accurate assumptions about my capabilities and the challenges? Did I make a mistake in judging the situation? Did my strategies make sense, given the circumstances and goals? Did I make a mistake in charting my course and choosing my methods? How logically organized, feasible, and complete was my plan? Did I make a mistake in creating the plan? And did my team, colleagues, friends, or just myself, did I follow the plan? Did I make a mistake in execution? All of these are really important questions to ask and to answer. 4th, research it. Research how similar situations were dealt with by others. This will help you see what obstacles they faced and how they tried to overcome them. What can you learn from others' situations? Take notes on what you learn. Remember, there's a wealth of knowledge out there in books and online. You can learn from the best of the best, from the successful people in the world, from their mistakes and their successes. Put in the effort to find out those answers. Once you've looked at how others have dealt with similar situations, ask people you know what they think. Approach experts if possible. If not, talk to people who you might think have good advice. have a conversation with them and explain the situation, ask questions, and write down their feedback. And finally, perhaps the most important part, once you know the cause of that failure, what led up to that failure, the decisions that were made, how others have approached similar problems, and you have some advice from others, then put it all on paper in a logical and organized format. This can be a great resource for you later, so do it. It may seem like a lot to do or possibly unnecessary, but remember, successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. So be willing to do what is necessary. There you have it. These are 5 steps to the road to understanding failure, embracing failure, and then learning from it. Take this advice and remember these 5 steps are: 1, take responsibility. 2, identify the cause. 3, evaluate your thinking. 4, research it. And 5, document it. That's it for this section on learning from failure. Let's get ready to answer the mystery question for embracing failure and learning from it.